lot of amazing stories on my journey about other people. You know, it's like amazing stories, or it could just be small things or whatever. But I always hear positive impacts in so many ways. Is anybody interested in coming up? Doesn't need to be a prepared speech or anything. Just it can be like 5 seconds.
My first question is for Shanna. How much does stuff stick in your new Go Wise air fryer? Do you find anything sticking to it?
So tofu will stick a little bit in your air fryer. I know a lot of people recommend putting a tiny bit of oil on their tofu, but I'm not going to do that. So what I will do sometimes is put a little bit of oil on a paper towel, give a very, very light rub, and then rub off as much as I can so that if there is anything on there, it's not, I mean, you can't see it. It's just microscopic. But that's the only thing I've had stick is tofu. And I put usually on my tofu a little bit of brown rice flour, and even still, that's the only thing though, just tofu.
Thank you. I have a silicone mat that has little pyramids on it. They call it contoured, little bumps on it so that things don't stick. And so I just took the scissors to it and I cut it to fit inside my little air fryer. And I can't put it on the highest heat because then the alarms go off, you know, it just, there's no smoke, there's no smell, but something about it, the alarms go off in the house for the smoke detector. But on the lower heats, if I'm not really trying to get it brown, I can put that in the bottom of my air fryer, and because it's kind of, and I kind of bow it a little bit. I didn't cut it so that it just lies flat, so that the air can circulate, and that's how I get around mine.
You can also put parchment in the bottom of it as long as you poke some holes in the parchment. And don't cover the bottom completely, because the way it works is you need the airflow around your food. And so the more you're covering that airflow, the less airflow you have. But a small piece of parchment that has some perforations poked in it will also work in the bottom.
And if you want to make your parchment catch fire, it will catch fire really easily in my air fryer. So I have used it before in my, but when my stuff gets cooked and dry and it's kind of bobbling around in there because of the air currents, then when the parchment paper sort of wafts up and touches the heating element, whoosh, then the smoke alarms really go off. Yes, you have to put weight of food on it. So. Ooh, now that makes good sense. Instant Pot trivet is the perfect size. That would be good. That would be good. So when I put a can of beans, no can opener, but just a can of beans in my carry-on, unopened can of beans, they won't let me through security because cans of beans have liquid in them. So, okay, whatever. So if I go Southwest and you can fly with 2 free checked bags, then I'll put cans of beans in there if I don't have a plan to rent a car at my destination or wherever I'm flying. But one thing that will go through in my backpack through security is polenta log. I get mine from Trader Joe's. So a polenta log, they're quite intrigued by it, and you got to take it out because they're like, what is this, like cheese? Yeah, like cheese. It's like cheese, but made from corn. Okay. So then they're okay with it because cheese they understand. But they'll let polenta log go through as long as you take it out right before you put it through the X-ray thing. Just take it out and put it in that little dish and show it to them, and then they know you're not trying to hide anything. And then you just sail right on through with polenta. And polenta can be eaten cold. The only thing is, since you don't have anything sharp because you just went through security, is getting the package open, you know, so it's hard to do with teeth or whatever. So that's, however, cuticle nippers, I don't know why they let me, cuticle nippers are sharp. You could stab somebody with that, but anyway, they'll let me go through security with cuticle nippers, and you can poke it with that. So anyway, just saying, for travel. Who else has some travel tips? Who else travels for work a lot? Yeah, really, don't travel.
I travel to Asia a lot because my husband is Chinese, And it's really, really easy to be vegan in China. You can get vegetables everywhere. They have a lot of vegetables. But it's very challenging to be oil-free in China. And his family is like a big meat-eating family. And we would eat like in his family's house a lot, and I could cook the way I wanted to. But when we went out to eat, I would say, hey, I'm good. I'm just going to eat the rice. And I eat the rice. And there was a little piece of parsley next to the meat. And I would break up the parsley, and I'd put that in my rice. And I'm like, I know I'm going to get some vegetables later. You know, you can survive on rice, you know, for weeks. Probably wouldn't recommend it your whole life or anything, but, you know, as long as you can have a starch, you know. So Japan and China, I don't worry about it anymore because I know I can just get rice, you know, at minimum, anywhere you go. So that's how I survive Asia.
It's, if you consider hiking a form of traveling, I'm a long-distance hiker for fun, and I did the Grand Canyon rim to rim a couple of years ago, and so it's 24 miles and 10,000 feet of vertical, and I survived on whole grain bread smeared with almond butter and dried fruits like cranberries, and it got me the whole way across. It was a 13-hour crossing, no problems. So there's and it handled the heat at the bottom. It was 45 degrees at the rim, about 90, low 90s at the bottom, and the sandwiches were still edible at the other side, so they worked beautifully. So I'm guessing most of you are taking this journey for health reasons. But as many of you may know, there are two other pivots that may be near and dear to your heart. One is animal welfare, and the third one is the environment. And for those of you that are going plant-based because of your concerns about the environment, you may be familiar with a guy named Paul Hawken, and he has just come out with a book that is now a New York Times bestseller, and he is trying to motivate people to go and take action, day-to-day actions to help us draw down the impacts of climate change. And believe it or not, he's ranked the top 100 things that we can do. And guess what number 4 is? Going plant-based or plant-based eating. Okay, he's not necessarily saying go 100%, but just think about it. If tens of millions of people went 40%, that is a massive amount of change versus just a couple of million people going 100%. So we're trying to encourage as many people as possible, even if you just go 2 days a week, meatless Mondays and meatless Fridays or something. It's a profound impact when hundreds of millions of people do it. So it's a great book, Drawdown. I'll put it on the Facebook page so that those of you who want to potentially go buy it. I got it $11 on Amazon, and it came in one day. So it's a great read. Okay, so animal-based products take a heavy toll on the environment in order to grow, say, 1 pound of meat or 1 pound of animal protein. First of all, you have to destroy forests, which are the lungs of the planet, in order to create grazing ground for those animals. By then depleting the forests, you now have a field that animals eat. They eat that grass, but once they eat it, they've got to be moved to other pastures to eat. So you run out of land for animals to eat if you want to have free-range animal flesh. So they then confine them into what are called CAFOs, concentrated animal feed operations, which we don't see because they're out in remote places with lots of 12-foot walls and barbed wire, and they confine them. And so we grow probably 40 to 50% of the food that we grow, the plants that we grow, are not for human consumption. They're there to grow, to feed livestock, right? So again, that's another depletion on the environment. It takes an awful lot of water to keep livestock hydrated and to grow the crops necessary to feed the livestock, right? So again, that's massive uses of a water resource that could be put to better use with plants, just a plant-based diet. So there's massive three-dimensional, multi-dimensional burdens on eating an animal-based diet. The number one here, just in case you're curious, is refrigeration. So think about air conditioning systems, cars, buildings, transport. So now we go back to the animal-based diet. So now you have an animal that has been processed, and animal slaughterhouses have to be kept very cold. Employees work in 35-degree temperatures to process that animal, and then that animal has to be transported through refrigerated trucks and kept refrigerated so it can be kept safe before it's eaten. So there's a heavy, heavy burden on the refrigeration industries to sustain in the animal-based food. So Drawdown, it's a fascinating read. Animal waste, yes, yep.
Yeah, I don't know a heck a lot about it. I do know that with pig farms and with beef farms that the animal waste issue is tremendous. And they have these wastewater ponds that occasionally leak into our streams and other waterways. But I'll come out front. My story, as far as a testimonial, thank you. As far as a testimonial goes, is I have a neurological disorder and wanted to start eating healthier and wanted to lose weight. I needed to be able to conserve my arms and shoulders when it came to pushing myself around. And so my doctor was just starting to do the research on the Eat to Live book, and that's how I started was with my doctor kind of following us along. She actually offered a bunch of her patients free blood work and then would test us again in 3 months if we were staying on the plan. And I have found I've lost, 20 pounds, and that's over a couple of years. And thank you. But I've also been able to be a little more active. I am now kayaking, which is a great upper body sport. And I find that, and fly fishing from the kayak, yeah. I was telling my friend Roz that I don't do that much kayaking. I'm kind of kayak to a spot and then fish there for an hour, and then kayak to another spot. But it's still getting me out of the house and in the sun, get my vitamin D. So that's my story. My name's Lisa, by the way. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm Scott, and I learned something very interesting. People eat meat mainly for protein, but I learned that cows cannot make protein. They get it from the food they eat. Okay. Anybody else?
Hello, everyone. This is my first time here. Thank you. My name is Ivan Naranjo, and I'm actually one of your city planners with the City of Austin. I just came back from the national conference of the American Planning Association. And the book that you looked at, Drawdown, that was actually one of the headline books in our planning conference. So I recognized it right away when you showed it. A lot of very good points that book brings, but actually it's the awareness that we all need to have concerning the environment that we live in. We only have one world, one planet. It took about 200,000 years for the human race to reach 1 billion people. It has taken 200 years for it to go from 1 billion to 7 billion. So we have tremendous needs of our resources. And we have a lot to do collectively to, excuse me? Oh, okay. Yeah, we have a lot to do collectively to really take care of our planet and take care of ourselves, because this is the future also that we're leaving behind to, to others. So what we do matters. What we consume, the energy that we use, all of it, everything matters. We have tremendous demand on the systems, energy systems, food supplies, or water supply. So really take into account everything that you do because it really, really matters. So anyway, those are my 2 cents.
Is there anyone who has experienced for themselves health benefits by turning their diet around from animal products to no animal products?
I feel like I'm slow to get to this game. My sister has been a vegan for probably 40 years, but my daughter was looking for a vegan doctor and found Dr. Carney, and we had gone to the Austin Veg Fest, and my daughter had already started eating vegan and thought we'd give it a try. I'm the one that really needed it the most in the family. I'm a breast cancer survivor, had my thyroid taken out because I thought it was cancer, but it wasn't. I've had a history of all kinds of polyps removed, and anyway, so I'm now off my blood pressure medicine, and I'm off my simvastatin. I've lost at least 20 pounds without trying, and I still eat like a pig. And yeah, it's thanks to all the support of everybody I met here. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lita's husband, and my sister comes and visits us on Christmas, and she says she can eat as much as she wants, stuff herself, and she still loses weight.
For me, when I gave up meat, dairy, eggs, and oil, I became free from asthma. And I've been asthmatic since, toddlerhood, and it's just wonderful not to be tied to that inhaler. So I'm really grateful to learn about a diet without meat, dairy, eggs, and oil.
Awesome. So I started transitioning in, I think about a year and a half ago, and I always like to tell the story that back like 2 years ago when Andrew and I were dating, I told him if he ever went vegetarian, I would break up with him because I just didn't understand it at that point. And then I started switching over because I used to think, wow, I work really hard, and so I have a headache at the end of the day, and I'm tired. And then as I switched my diet, I realized that when I didn't eat dairy and cheese, that I didn't have any headaches. And so it got rid of my headaches at the end of the day. It got rid of the rosacea in my cheeks. I always used to have really smelly feet, and so... so much so that I'd actually have to throw my shoes away after a year because they were just so unbearably smelly. And so it was like they had a year lifespan, and then they were in the trash because you could smell them in my room. And that, I mean, I don't have like feet that smell like roses, but it's definitely much better now. And also I used to, after moving to Austin, get sinus headaches, sometimes so bad where I would just like lay down and be done for the night. And in the middle of the night, I would always have to kind of get up sometimes and blow my nose so that I could breathe because I didn't like breathing through my mouth. And that was just kind of what I'd always done, so I figured that was normal. And it wasn't till I realized, like, a year after transitioning, I'm like, oh, I don't have to do that all the time. I do get up to the bathroom, go to the bathroom way more often, but, like, I'm not getting up to blow my nose because I can't breathe. And so that's been a nice change, too. I was also, even growing up and in school, I would always be tired. And so I'd finish my work and I'd take a nap. And even in college, I'd be super tired. And I didn't drink caffeine at that time. But now I find I go to bed, I wake up, and I go through my day, and I'm perfectly fine. And I get tired at the end of the night. But I'm able to kind of concentrate all day long and don't feel like this constant fatigue, especially if I'm in lecture or something. I don't have to go to class anymore, but if I do, that doesn't happen. So it's been a really nice change because a lot of the things that have changed have been things that I just thought were normal, and that's how it was. And then once they went away, I was like, oh, you can have more energy and breathe all night and not get headaches at the end of the day. So it's a really good change. So I enjoy it.
So many of my patients have told me about the change in bodily odors that, there's something to it, that getting the animal proteins out of your life, bodily secretions do not smell the same. It's just amazing.
I started even thinking about becoming vegetarian vegan when I worked for Hospice Austin, great organization. I'm a nurse for them, but it breaks my heart when I see patients that are dying from chronic diseases that are totally preventable. So I try to talk to their family some at some point just to let them know it's not a necessarily genetic thing and it can be controlled. But the Hospice Austin dietitian came and talked to us about her own health one day, and that's what just blew me away, because I didn't know anything that food could make that much of a difference. But she had an autoimmune disease. She had psoriasis so bad they were going to declare her disabled at the age of 24 because she couldn't get her hands around a steering wheel without cracked and bleeding skin. And they wanted to put her on methotrexate, which is a chemo drug, and she didn't want to do that for the rest of her life. So she asked her doctors, I'll do anything, she's a dietitian, I'll change my diet, I'll food, won't anything else work? And they told her, no, this is what you'll have to do, because they'd already tried all the steroids and everything else that was available. So she went online and looked at something that had helped a lot of other people, and it's basically a plant-based diet, no processed foods. And she said within 4 months, her psoriasis was almost totally controlled by her plant-based diet. And she'd also had asthma, and she was allergic to dogs, and now she owns a dog and hasn't used her inhaler in years. And this was like 12 years later that she was talking about this. So this was a true lasting change, and a lasting change in her health. And so that's when I decided, since my dad died of a heart attack at 38, I was always interested in nutrition, and I was trying to keep my cholesterol down, but I was still eating meat and doing what the Heart Association said you should do about trying to prevent that. And so I actually went to see her for my own health, and I just told her I just wanted it for prevention. And she told me about Forks Over Knives. It was coming out that year, actually, the video, and so I went to see that. And I changed, and one of my things was that I had chronic constipation for 7 years. I had to take a laxative every day for 7 years. And now I don't have to do that, thank goodness. And also my joints would ache. I drive home to Houston to see my mom, and I'd get out of the car like this, and I'm like, I'm not 80 years old, I shouldn't be feeling like that. And so I don't have those aches and pains in my joints anymore either. And those are just a couple of things that Yeah, they think it's a blood flow problem, definitely. So they think that it's definitely going to be something that they can tell people about. That yeah, I think so. I think it, and I don't know for sure. Dr. Carney can probably address that better than me.
The science is very clear that the more meat, dairy, and eggs that is eaten, the higher the risk of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's has a nickname in the medical community, and that is diabetes type 3, because you're absolutely right, it is a circulation problem. So the more meat, dairy, eggs, and oil that people eat, the higher the risk. However, I have seen people with dementia who their families have put them on this diet and have seen their condition improve and stay out of the institution that they were, okay, we need to put them in an institution. No, okay, we're willing to try anything. Okay, so tried the plant-based diet and bought them a few more years with it. So I'm not saying that it's going to make them 18 years old again, but I have seen it do wonderful things for people. About bone densities, if you use the same bone density machine year after year, you can compare apples to apples, because there's several types, like 3 different types of, well, probably more than that, but anyway, 3 main categories of bone density machines. So getting the same machine year after year, or the same place with the same machine, that's important. But if you do that, I've had some patients who had the same machine about 12 months apart in their bone density. If I was able to convince them to give up meat, dairy, eggs, oil, alcohol, and caffeine, because alcohol and caffeine are going to act like diuretics and wash the calcium right out through the kidney system and weaken the bones, for osteoporosis. And so if those people did that and they allowed me to order a bone density test a year later, there are people who have gone from the osteoporosis category to the osteopenia category, which is not as bad. There are people who have gone from the osteopenia category to the normal category, and they're a year older. So out there in the non-vegan world and in the world of standard American diet, you don't see that. I mean, that doesn't happen. So I'm grateful to see bone densities improve for people like that. Echocardiograms. An echocardiogram is like an ultrasound of the heart, and some people's heart valves leak. We call it regurgitation or insufficiency. So there's 4 different valves in the heart, and people who have changed their diet and given up the meat, dairy, eggs, oil, alcohol, caffeine, all of which can damage the endothelial cell, damage the circulation, and wrinkle the heart valves so that they are not fitting together perfectly. I've seen people go from leaking valve to the next year after changing their diet, non-leaking valve a year later when an ultrasound has been done. Same company that came around to the office and did the ultrasound for them. So I'm not saying that you can reverse every heart valve leakage, but I do believe that there's no better diet for our species than a plant-based diet. Anybody else? Thank you. Yes, David. Sickle cell. You know what? The more a person with sickle cell will eat a plant-based diet and stay well hydrated, because you know that sickling crises can be precipitated by dehydration. But a plant-based diet is filled with watery fruits and vegetables, and so if you're not eating vegan junk food, if you're eating vegetables and beans and whole grains like that, and you're eating as unprocessed as possible, the incidence of sickle crises are dramatically lowered for sickle cell patients, and they can do actually pretty well. I mean, they're always going to have that genetic tendency, but much less crises, much less hospitalizations, much less suffering and pain for them. Does anyone have any questions about how to, like, Shanna is a professional chef, it's like, of course, I see that the choir here has stayed till the end here. Yes, Ivan.
So all oils are processed and refined. It's 100% fat, and all of the good stuff has been left behind. So we call this a whole food plant-based diet, not just vegan, because we think that you need to eat the food in its least processed form that you can. So if you're going to eat a high-fat food, have the olive, or have the nut, or the seed, or the avocado, and not the extracted fat out of the whole food. So I always like to say that oil is to fats what white sugar is to carbohydrates. It's such a refined product, and all the good stuff has gone away. It's damaging to your cardiovascular system, and it's 100% fat. It's the most calorically dense food on the planet, food-like substance rather. So why would you want to mess up a salad, which is low caloric density with all those vitamins and nutrients in there, and add something that junky on top of it? There are so many ways to make salad dressings without oils that are just as delicious. It doesn't matter. It can be the most expensive olive oil you can find on the planet. Doesn't matter how it's processed. It's all refined.
And I believe it's 40 olives for 1 tablespoon of olive oil.
Right. Right.
So what is all, we've all been fed the line of the good oils, the good fats.
Yeah.
What is it that makes them not good?
If you'll promise to come on the 3rd Sunday in June, I'll bring 10 points of what's wrong with oil, and I'll bring it as a handout. I have it as a slide. I'll just print that as a slide. True or false, everyone? Olive oil causes cancer. True. How does olive oil cause cancer? Who can tell me? Yes, it's inflammatory. Several ways. When you heat an oil, acrylamides are formed. Who knows what acrylamides are? Yes. Yeah, they're cancer-causing chemicals in oil when you heat oil. And oil causes cancer from a different mechanism because all the fats can raise our estrogen. And when estrogen is raised, estrogen is a growth promoter. Without estrogen, no fetus would grow, no breast would grow, no cancer would grow. And so we are over-estrogenizing ourselves by eating oil. Yes, extra virgin olive oil. It's inflammatory, causing the asthma, the acne, the arthritis. It's empty calories, as she said. It's 100% fat, no carbohydrate, no protein, and it's very concentrated. Takes up a tiny amount of space in your stomach, so it doesn't fill you and give you satiety, but it's too many calories. It's just too concentrated. Hurts endothelial cells, so it shrinks your blood flow to the heart valve, making your heart valve leak, to the ear, making age-related hearing loss, to the eye, the cataracts. In fact, cataracts were correlated in the scientific study. The more salad oils the women ate, and this is non-heated, the more cataracts. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And what's wrong with oil? Diabetes, because too much fat in the diet plugs up the little doorways that trying to get sugar into the muscle to energize it, and so too much fat in the diet can cause diabetes, whereas many people will tell you that too much sugar causes diabetes. No, it's too much fat in the diet or animal protein. They both lock the door. It's like gum dried in the lock, and insulin's key won't fit. So here's another question, true or false? Eating olive oil can suppress a man's testosterone. True. How does that happen? Over-estrogenization, suppressing the testosterone. Yeah. Absolutely. Too much growth out of control is called cancer. And so oils can contribute to cancer even if the oil is not heated. So I'll bring that little handout for you. What's wrong with oil? Would you like a PowerPoint on that one of these days? What's wrong with oil? Okay. I'll work on that. Yes, Linda. Yes, we should supplement with B12. Absolutely. I supplement every day because I want to have clear thinking, even keel emotions, lots of energy. And I don't want to just get by with the minimum amount of B12. I'm using it every day. The older we get, and I'm in my late 50s, the older we get, the harder it is to absorb it. And so I take hydroxycobalamin every day. That's the active metabolite, like methcobalamin, but hydroxycobalamin is a detoxer as well, which methcobalamin isn't. But if you don't want to order it from Swanson's, you can buy methcobalamin, and that is also the active metabolite. Does not release cyanide to the body like cyanocobalamin. B12 is only made by bacteria. Plants cannot make B12. Animals cannot make B12. But if animal products are ingested, they're covered with bacteria, and so you're getting a lot of B12 if you're using the animal products. However, I have more B12 deficient patients among my animal protein eaters than my plant protein eaters because my vegan patients, they know that they need to take B12. So, yes. I think that the sublingual is a good way to absorb it. The little hydroxycobalamin, there's one on the table out there if you want to see what I take every day. You can dissolve it under your tongue, or you can chew it like a sweet tart, or you can swallow it. So yeah. I don't like liquid forms because they're more likely to be cyanocobalamin, and that releases cyanide to the body. Okay. Omega-3. If you eat leafy greens at 2 different meals a day, you're going to get all the omega-3 that you need. Leafy greens. And if you eat leafy greens at 2 different meals a day, you're going to get all the calcium that you need. And if you eat leafy greens at 2 different meals a day, you're going to get all the iron that you need, as long as you're not eating only spinach, which is a little stingy with the iron. So it's not that spinach is bad, it's just eat a variety of leafy greens. So calcium, iron, omega-3, and protein. If you eat leafy greens at 2 different meals a day, you're going to get all the protein that you need. Spinach has 51% of its calories as protein. So believe it or not, leafy greens are pretty high in protein. Popeye was right. Yes, Patty. Yes, broccoli's a leafy green. You know what? I don't know why, but cauliflower is a leafy green too. Yeah. Yes, Ross. Well, I was a vegetarian. I became a vegetarian at age 9 when I got a new stepdad into my life. And then when I learned at age 36, Dr. Hans Deal came to my town with the CHIP program, Complete Health Improvement Project, and I learned the dangers of animal protein, and so I eliminated those. And many people do go from vegetarian to vegan, and then some people, they just go from standard American diet, boom, to vegan just like that. And so I'm not really sure what the best thing to answer your question is. Is it doable? However people get to a completely plant-based diet, whatever works for them. My particular pathway was vegetarian and then vegan, but you don't have to do that if you want to try vegan all the way. What do you think, Roz? What she said was vegetarians focus a lot on eggs and cheese, and I was just really overdosing on eggs and cheese. There was a time in my life I was eating a carton of 12 eggs a week. Crazy, you know, but I didn't know any better. I was in medical school, and they would give the poor people government eggs and government cheese, and, you know, I was poor. And so yeah, I was eating like a pound of cheese a week. It was just craziness. And it was not good for my health, not good at all. And I wish that I had known what I know now. You know, I wish I'd been raised vegan, oil-free. But, you know, come to it as soon as you can, do the best that you can do. I think that people who are vegetarian get really, really hooked on eggs and cheese. It's really, really hard for them to give up eggs and cheese because these products are very addicting. And there's several reasons why. Would you like that as a PowerPoint? Why are eggs and cheese so addicting? Would that be interesting? Okay, another. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm an example of someone who went from standard American diet, large pizzas and a gallon of ice cream all to myself, not sharing, to plant-based in one fell jump. I did the Furman 6-week detox. I thought, because I read The Pleasure Trap, and I said, the science is you're still feeding your body this stuff that's addicting and nasty. And so I said 6 weeks of misery is better than a constant. And I spent my 20s and 30s on every diet on the planet. I used to be size 22, 240 plus. That was the worst, okay? So I've done the spectrum of it and failed every time. Well, succeeded in dieting because I'm a very disciplined person, right? But as soon as I stopped the diet, it came back on. So for me, once I'd read all the science and sort of understood what plant-based eating was, I said, I'm going in. So for me, my journey was 100%, and in 6 weeks, I made the switch. That was 6 years ago.
That's inspiring. That's great. And then, of course, there's the experience of the Engine 2 immersion. I was the medical director for the employees of Whole Foods Market who went through the Engine 2 immersion, and they came in as standard American diet eaters. These are the employees of Whole Foods Market who were the sickest and who had auditioned or tried out for this and got accepted into it. And they, you know, at the end of the week, many of them grabbed the microphone at graduation and said, hey, you know, chicken fried steak used to be my favorite thing, and now I'm not going to eat fried anything because it's not only animal protein but oils that you've taught me the science of why this is bad. I feel so fantastic. I've eaten, you know, 3 meals a day, snacks if I wanted them, and I'm losing weight and I'm feeling better. I'm off my blood pressure medicine, and a lot of them have had dramatic turnarounds. Rip tells me that in his immersions, one person dropped their triglycerides more than 1,000 points in 1 week. Isn't that wonderful? That's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. So yes, it's doable, and I think the more animal protein you cut out right away. Yes, you go through a steeper detox, but you start feeling better right away. And just like Carol said, don't drag the detox out for 6 months. Just get it over with, and yeah, you're going to feel bad maybe for the first little while, but your taste buds will change. And when you get that animal protein taste out, the food starts tasting better and better. Well, thank you so much for all your patience. It's been a wonderful time together today, and I don't know if I'm the one who's has the authority to close the meeting, but so we're going to let you go, and thank you, and very much. Bring all your friends third Sunday of every month, and we'll see you here in June. Oh, thank you, Patty.
I really like the success stories, and just bring more of your experiences, because I think it's really nice for everybody to hear the benefits. I got a lot out of what everybody had to say today. So thank you. Come next month.
Absolutely. And one last thing, I just want to thank you for coming and being a supportive community, because every month there are people who have medical issues, and they're coming to this potluck for their first time, and they're seeking hope. And by being a supportive community for them, you're giving hope to a lot of people. You're actually saving lives by being here and supporting this potluck. So thank you very much.